began. And from tomorrow onwards, we are actually with the foreign experts. It will be quite interesting to listen to her. Let's see how best the whole thing gets catch up. The title, as we already said, like it has the polymer printing process and the surface treatment for biomedical application. Basically, the whole approach is towards the biomedical application, that how best we can actually take care of that. And now today I'm going to just discuss with you the design and development of the medical devices, considering the approach from bench to bed and how best it will be possible for us to rather look at the innovation of the medical devices. Frankly speaking, medical devices innovation is very tough task, because the first and foremost thing everyone should understand, why we need an innovation in the medical devices. The one which I have already told you in my last lecture is to help the medical fraternity, especially from the diagnostic point of view. So, how best it will be possible to look at the diagnosis from the medical devices is again a big problem. Most of the time what is seen that whatever the results that you get it from the medical devices, it is accepted blindly by many, and then based on that they say, okay, this is what exactly you are suffering from, and ultimately the whole treatment starts with that approach. Say for example, if somebody says that, okay, this is your sugar level and therefore you are suffering from diabetes, that's all. So, we believe on that, the results that you get it from the medical devices, and ultimately we say that, okay, this is the treatment, and ultimately we go on giving medications to that patient. And now, frankly speaking, how best this whole approach is really very tough question to answer. And you'll find that there are a lot of, I don't call it as a researcher, but I say there are a lot of work going on towards development of the newer and newer devices. But ultimately, what should be our approach? That is very important, and we must look into that. And my lecture I have actually designed from that particular perspective. So let's see how best we get some deliverable out of that. And that's why I mentioned it in the bracket, innovative product. That means some innovation. There has to be some innovation. And then if there is an innovation, then naturally, the whole process goes in a very random way. How do you call innovation? What is innovation? All these things is really very difficult to answer. Rather, I should say it is more of a subjective in nature rather than an objective one. So, if it is subjective in nature, then, then there are a lot of ifs and buts. But if you can orient it in such a fashion that there will be some objectivity, then the interest of the researcher or interest of the common man rather, that also starts picking up in the same direction. And actually, that's what exactly I'm going to tell you today. So the agenda is introduction quickly, what are the points of concern. Then I'm going to tell you some innovative technique called trees, and then what exactly we have done at VNIT using that, and finally the conclusion. Okay. Now let's look at the introduction. Now I told you in my last lecture also exactly there I have told you like the classes, medical devices are classified under class A, class B, class C and class D. At international level, they classified class 1, class 2 and class 3. It is rather simpler than our ABCD. But in Indian scenario, they talk about ABCD, and that CD is actually involved in class 3. So it is A, B and CD. That's what you can see. Very easy from the, if you look at the so-called picture, you can say that the devices like a simple your wheelchair, thermometer, all these are class 1, low risk. Injections and all that, they are all you consider to be class 2 to some medium level. And class 3 are the one which is actually implanted into the patient body forever. And therefore the pacemaker shown and implant is also shown. So these class 3 devices, that's what is mentioned, can cause harm to the patients. And therefore our main interest is towards this class 3. I told you in the last class also, or last lecture also, that whatever the work we need to do it in biomedical engineering, we'll have to focus more towards the class 3. If at all the dependency on the import is to be looked at, then we are more dependent on the class 3 devices, imported class 3 devices. And therefore, the work towards the class 3 is important. That we'll have to look into that particular aspect. Okay. So let me tell you a very interesting article which I have just came across in Economic Times. And very interesting to see this article. What is mentioned there? Bringing the dialysis divide. Okay, a simple article for the public interest. And they have shown about the problem of the dialysis in patients. No need to go through the complete one, but I will be more happy to show you these particular things. What will be mentioned, that the machine availability, that means this dialysis machine required in India is around 1.05 lakhs. But available today are only 40,000. That means even less than 50% are available. So if you look at these particular statistics, simple statistics, and therefore I have purposely made this particular slide, that what exactly happened, and that in 2023, that's what they said recently. So one they say that this 40,000 is a big problem. The number of patients requiring dialysis are definitely more, because that's what they say, 1.05 lakhs, and available are only 40,000. So in this scenario, what happens, like, because the number of machines are less, the dialysis cycle that is required to be given to the patient, if it is required 3 times in a week, they do it in 2 times in a week only, because that machines are not available. And ultimately you will find that the proper dialysis is not being carried out of the, that means the kidney dysfunction, those who are actually having an SCKD, there they face this problem. So what is the answer? Then what exactly we are supposed to do? We will say that, okay, then why don't you increase this 40,000 to 1.05 lakhs? Or why don't you increase even more than that? It is all because it is not that the increasing the number, as soon as you say that it is increasing the number to 1.05 lakh, these are all to be imported. We don't manufacture in India. That is the major problem. And now what type of a rather devices I am talking about? Class 3. This is a class 3 device. So our whole approach has to be towards the class 3 devices. And then only this import dependency and other things will be reduced. Otherwise this will continue forever. You can't even purchase so many machines, that's number 1. Number 2 is that operation cost of the operation of the machines is really very high. And very few hospitals can afford it, very few patients can afford it. That's a different story, but we are not going to look into that. What is important here is that we need to look at this picture very, very carefully. And I'm just giving you the example of a dialysis. But all the devices like pacemaker, then I told you the implants. All these things are really very, very problematic. And we don't manufacture in India. I have the statistics to tell you later on that how many industries are there, medical devices industries, those who are actually working in this particular domain, and the results that you get it is very poor. So what is important here is to understand that we need to look into this. Let's look into the another interesting points of concern. That is what is exactly the we need to look at. When you look at this particular figure, and this is really very interesting, what I mentioned that the confidence of the manufacturer from the developed country. This is interesting. If you look at this particular graph, pie chart we call it as, it is mentioned that in 2014-15, the total import, it was around 23,169 crores. And later on in 18-19, that has gone to 38,837 crores. I'm just showing the data which is available. Do you mean to say that in 2018-19 to say for today 25-26, though that data is not available with us? It has reduced less than 38,000? No, it has definitely increased. So ultimately what is happening, like the import bill is continuously increasing. And what is the reason? Is it that we are not in a position to develop the class 1 devices or class 2 devices? Is it that we are not up to the mark as far as the engineering or as far as the technology is concerned? We say yes, we can do it anything. All thermometers are made in India. Higgs thermometers, I think you people must be aware of. Everybody. But class 3 devices, big, we can't manufacture it. We can't rather produce it here in India. And therefore this is increasing. Most of the high-end medical devices are imported. And therefore, now the question which is very interesting for all of us to look at, that if this continues, remember this is really very interesting, if this continues, then this matters. What happens, like suppose I am using the say for example pacemaker of an imported company, and as a doctor I am recommending that because that's the only one which is available. Then even if the industry from India is indicating that they are manufacturing a pacemaker, the doctor will not be in a position to rather recommend it because he has already developed a confidence in the pacemaker developed by the imported company or imported pacemaker. So ultimately this will be a big problem later on, and it's happening today. The ecosystem is getting developed that the imported devices are better than the Indian made devices. That's what we have seen. Even the doctors community is actually recommending the same thing, which is very problematic. Now let me tell you quickly a very nice incidents that one of the doctor from Pune, who is actually from medical college, there is a medical college in Pune. He said that, Sir Kuthe, I am not happy with the people, those who are from India, as far as the manufacturing of the medical devices are concerned. I said, sir, why? What is the problem? He said, there is only one issue. That whenever they come with the devices, saying that this is matching with the imported one, and this is manufactured by the industry. So immediately he said, sir, this is costing, say imported devices is costing 80,000 rupees and mine is costing 5,000. As soon as they say like that, then I started realizing why that from 80,000 to 5,000? All of a sudden such a big gap. If you would have said, sir, that is costing 80,000 and mine is costing 60,000, 75,000, I would have appreciated that. I would have said, okay, at least the technology matching with that you are developing. But how come that from 80,000 to all of a sudden 5,000? So, our manufacturing sector is also need to be properly upgraded. nobody wants the very, very cheap one. We do want Indian, but giving the quality. And that is very important from the point of view of the industry also, or our ecosystem in industry. They say that if at all you are talking about the cost of the product, then either talk about the very high cost product or talk about the product which is very, very cheap. Say that I have developed a product which is cheapest in the world, that is accepted, or say that I have developed a product which is costlier than the costliest part available in the world. But don't stand in the middle of it. Don't say that it is bit costlier than the cheapest one and less costly than the costlier one. Because we want quality in medical devices. We want result. And as I already told you, like simply accepting the result from the medical devices and saying that this is what has been diagnosed is like using a medical device as a black box. Everybody is using that. So better see that the quality is up to the mark. And that is how the thing is. If you look at this, this will be continuously increasing. And I am more worried about this particular world. That the medical fraternity is developing a lot of confidence in the devices for the developed countries. And every day this is building up, which is very bad. And that's what is a point of concern for us. The next interesting point is that what exactly we should look at from the point of view of any product, but basically from medical devices. That this is a nice so-called figure wherein you say that you start with the concept, then you use certain engineering principle to develop a product. Then see that some company will take that product for the manufacturing, and finally it will reach to the customer. Now here, from concept to engineering to entrepreneurship to the customer, all these things, there are certain valleys, and that needs to be overcome. Here what you will find that from concept to engineering there is a valley, but between engineering and entrepreneur there is a ravine, and they say that from companies to customer there is a deep canyon, and if you fall here, that's a death trap. That means you will never reach to the customer. I don't know how many of you are aware, but generally we talk about the technology readiness level, TRL levels. So these are all the technology readiness levels, starts with the TRL 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Up to TRL 9. TRL 9 is the customer. And most of them will never reach to the TRL 9. Most of them reach up to the TRL 5 and not even up to entrepreneurship and company. That means 6, 7, 8 is very tough. 9 is almost difficult in case of the medical devices. So those who achieve the satisfaction of the customer in medical devices, they remain the winner forever. Because other devices are not ready to compete with that. That's the interesting point. Now, what exactly we are supposed to do in this case? We do use CAD and CAM and everything to overcome this valley and ravine. But this deep canyon is very difficult because the customer is to be always satisfied. From that perspective, if you look at, I wish to tell you a very interesting engineering principle, to which we call it as the trees. They also call it an Ashura theory. Very simple, but very difficult to implement, but at the same time effective. How do you rather look into that? Okay. Now here, when you actually enter into these trees, as it is mentioned, need for innovative product. There are interesting points, and I am going to tell you from our basic products, and then we will enter into the medical devices. There we talk about in the technical world there is a stiff competition, and there you can see that it changes so fast that you can see such type of the devices long back. Later on it has come to this, and now here we are having the smartphones which almost every 6 months they are changing. That means this product life cycle is incredibly shrinking. very fast it is changing. That means the life cycle of a particular product is very small. So innovation is continuously happening, and the human comfort is playing a dominant role there. As we also say in medical devices, that the device has been developed which is giving a correct diagnosis of the patient, and everybody is relying on that. So this is really very interesting, and lot of medical devices we can nowadays talk about. Let me tell you here again from the medical devices point of view, but there comes the actually use of so-called our polymer printing. Here, when you actually look into this particular picture, forget about the tooling and the production, that goes very fast, was the design. But this is the design cycle. And here we talk about the concept design, engineering, detailed design and all that. And every time we are getting the prototype of that. Now, why do you require this prototype? This is really very interesting. Why do you want to go for the prototype every time? You should have got the prototype at the end. But why do you want to get the prototype every now and then? Because the customer satisfaction plays the dominant role. And customer needs to be shown what is the concept in your mind. And that concept, if you show him in a form of some physical product, then immediately it will be clear to him. So every time whatever the concept or whatever the engineering or whatever the design stage you talk about, every time you have to get this prototype. Now, getting the prototype at every stage is not so easy, because prototype means nothing but actually physical model. You may say that even I can get the physical model in terms of the your cardboard or the thermocol model or a clay model, even that is also prototype. But you have to get that fabricated. It takes time. And what you are doing, here you are showing the two-way operation, continuous operation. That means the concept has been framed, a physical model is ready. Again that physical model is ready and the customer is not happy with that, again you are changing the concept, again physical model is very easy for me to show it on the screen, but very difficult to execute. Why? Because as soon as the concept comes in my mind, immediately its physical model should be also available. So that physical model itself is a big issue. Now here you will find that our polymer printing plays a dominant role, especially the 3D printing we talk about. There you take it in ABS. I have already shown you the models, and you also shown that particular models there in CAD/CAM Center visit. This is a wonderful technology which is helping in these medical devices or any devices which is to be innovated. There what you will find that whatever the concepts comes in your mind, get it edited on the computer, send it to the system, and the system will give you the model immediately. You can change it as many times as you can, and you will find that the whole cycle gets executed very fast. And what is the idea? Idea is that, as I already mentioned you there, that the customer should be always happy. So you are yet to enter into the domain of manufacturing, but your concept is accepted by the customer and the customer is now satisfied. That means now your product is bound to be successful. So for example, a very simple thing, that the pacemaker which is used in case of a so-called our cardiac patients. Now that pacemaker has been developed with certain concept in mind, and if you show to the patient that this is how the device is to be designed, or I have designed this innovative product. Now if you can show him, and if he says that no, I don't find it very appealing to me, you can change it, you can get his advice, change it as many times as you want, and ultimately the device will be definitely successful because the customer is happy with that. What I would like to tell you here is that whenever we talk about the innovation in the medical devices, polymer printing is must. Otherwise, you cannot design anything. So therefore, in biomedical engineering applications or in biomedical engineering, polymer printing goes as an essential tool. And you'll see that it has got a tremendous application. I will show you some of the case studies also. I have picked multi-concept design because that is what exactly is very important, and you need to develop a very nice concept. So what exactly is the issue? Like when you are talking about the conceptualization, that means whether the particular device is accepted to a customer or to the entrepreneur or whatever it is, there has to be effective brainstorming. Now I told you, like pacemaker is to be designed, which is user friendly, patient friendly and all that. So can you just tell me how exactly it is to be done? Can you tell me how exactly it is to be designed? If this question is asked to you, you say, okay, I'm thinking over it and all that, and different way of thoughts will come into your mind, and you will start interacting with each other, but with no proper direction. Because everybody thinks in his own way. Now, with this particular things in mind, what we say that in order to see that there is an effective brainstorming, there are only two techniques available, which they call it as the bionics and things. Effective brainstorming. Remember, we are now hitting at a stage or at the particular area where there is a more subjectivity. Brainstorming is subjective in nature, and you say that I want to make it effective. So you are bringing an objectivity into that subjectivity, frankly speaking. How to get the brainstorming done? Otherwise, you are free to express your ways the way you want. Now, how exactly it is to be done? There are two techniques. Out of that, we are going to talk more about the trees. Bionics is very interesting one, but not more user friendly from the point of view of the medical device. But we are going to talk from the trees. Now then, trees, there are 5 so-called tools available. Contradiction. That's what they call the tools of the trees. And the one which they call it as the contradiction matrix, structural field analysis, scientific effects, ideality, separation principles and all that. These are the tools of the trees. Out of that, the contradiction matrix and ideality plays dominant role. I'll tell you why. Though the others are also there, but out of that, the contradiction matrix plays the dominant role whenever you want to innovate something new, out of the box, right from the scratch. That's what they say. Developing anything from the scratch. That means nothing is available and you will have to develop a new device. Ideality is important when you will be now looking at the device which is already available and you want to improve it. So there are two things. Device is already existing, device is not at all existing. When device is not at all existing, in that case, contradiction matrix. And when the device is already existing and you want to improve that one, then comes to the ideality. So these two tools are very important. No doubt there are other tools also which are again very effective. But we are going to quickly see about these two and look at how best it can be done. So let's look at the contradiction matrix. Now when you see this particular figure of contradiction matrix, you will find that I have written no. And can you see that no is in that it is written yes, 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 yes everywhere. So yes and no together. That's what they talk about a contradiction. Whenever you are designing any device which is not at all existing, remember, then you will have to first think about the contradiction. What type of the contradiction? Here, a simple example. We say that I want more power but less maintenance. This is useful whenever you are developing a military vehicle. I am just giving you the example which are very easy for any common man to understand. Military vehicle, I want very powerful one. At the same time, I want less maintenance. So as soon as you talk about more or less, that means that's a contradiction. Then you say I want more reliability and less energy. That means in that case air conditioning system, yes. So again you talk about more and less. You say small power car and big car. So this is what is actually required in case of a car design. Okay. Then you say that more power, less weight aircraft design. So whenever you find there is a contradiction in the so-called design objectives, then you are on the right phase. That's what they talk about the contradiction. That means I will have to define, I will have to get any device developed with the contradiction. For example, medical device I would like to rather devise. I will say that I want it to be more reliable, at the same time less costly. So as soon as you say more reliable and less costly, that means you are on the right path. That means you are ready to use the contradiction matrix. How do you say this contradiction? You know, we started saying contradiction matrix. That means there has to be rows and columns when we talk about the matrix. And yes, it is true. Here, when you actually look into this particular skeleton of the contradiction matrix, then there are certain undesired features and there are certain features to be improved. And how many of them are like that? There are 39 parameters, 39 so-called the features which have been shown here, which are to be not required. That means we want the less, and we want the same 39 to be more. So the skeleton of the contradiction matrix will be such that it will be rather, say, if you look at this particular 1, what is mentioned? Weight of the moving object. And here also it is mentioned weight of the moving object. I want weight of the moving object to be less. At the same time, I say that I want the weight of the moving object to be more also. It cannot happen. It cannot be a contradiction at all. And therefore, in this 39 by 39 so-called contradiction matrix, at every stage where there is a 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, there is nothing. Okay. But in the rest of the thing, there are certain numbers given. What are these numbers? These numbers actually talk about what are called the innovative principles to be used in the development of the product. Now, let me tell you an interesting thing here. That, say for example, you look at this one, I want the weight of the moving object to be less. At the same time, I want its strength to be more. That's a contradiction. Now, as soon as you say that's a contradiction, then in that case, look at these numbers 1, 8, 40 and 15. These are the innovative principles which will guide you in designing that particular object. That means now there is a objectivity in our discussion now. We say that it is less, more. Okay. But now hence on, how should I proceed? I should proceed based on that. So I had to study these 40 innovative principles, and it will be quite interesting for me to use them in designing a new product. At least that will help me in brainstorming. Now, this is to be taken very, very carefully. Why? Because when you actually enter into this domain, then you will find that this contradiction matrix, I think it's very easily available in anywhere on the net. Just give it to contradiction matrix, everything is available. This link is also given there. But what is interesting, that these 40 innovative principles, the way I have written here, okay, now they are really very tough to handle. Why? Because, see, look at my product, medical devices. I say that I want to be more reliable, less costly. I want that to be less, with less weight also. Okay, I want it light. I want more reliable also. So now look at these two contradictions. I say that more reliable and less costly. I said more reliable and less weight also. So now I am using the two parameters now here. And therefore there will be more principles coming up. For first one there are certain 4 principles, in the other there will be some 4 principles. Like that there are 8 principles coming into the picture, and all the principles I have to study it from the development of the product, which is not at all existing. It's not so simple. It's not very simple, because we feel that okay, I can definitely look into that, but it's not so simple. Now what exactly we are supposed to do in that case then? Are you going to look at all the 40 innovative principles and going to look at that and then making the whole thing very fussy? No. Let me tell you an interesting thing here, and that's how we are developed. I'm just showing you a good example of the, say, flying ambulance, which is a very much necessity nowadays because of the heavy traffic jam everywhere. We do want that in a traffic jam, suppose the ambulance gets stuck up, what to do? Very difficult. In that case, we'll say that if we could have a flying ambulance, the thing would have been better and all that. Whatever it is, not air ambulance. I'm talking about flying ambulance. So suppose I want to develop that, and this is not existing. So it's a thing which is coming up with the very good rather the example for the contradiction matrix. When you look at this, you know when I use this contradiction matrix here, look at these particular things, and very interesting for all of you to look at. What is mentioned here? What I want to be lessen, that means less in number. What I want more, it means improvement. When I say moving object to be, that means the flying ambulance should have the less weight. Okay, done. Then what is the contradiction? Contradiction, I want that object speed should be more. So more speed, less weight. So immediately I will enter into the contradiction matrix, and then contradiction matrix gives this number 2, 28, 13 and 38, which relates to the innovative principles. Okay. Then look at the same thing. I say that I want the moving object to be with less weight, but I want the strength to be more, because I want that ambulance to be of a robust. So the principle that comes is 1 at 40, 15. See, we are using the contradiction matrix and adding the principle one after the other. Now with the two contradictions, the total number of these principles has gone to 8. That means I have to look at all the 8 principles and design this ambulance. That's what we say. Go on doing it like this. So we may say that, okay, moving object again, less weight, I want the reliability to be more. That means again 3, 8, 10, 40. Some more things has come. And contradiction matrix is already giving you the so-called the principles to be used. Then you say that the moving object volume to be less. At the same time, I want moving object to be speed more, 7, 29, 34. So this way, you go on developing the design principles as per the contradiction matrix. And that becomes a very complex problem. Why? Because the number of principles are increasing, and I am supposed to use that principles to develop the concept of the product. Medical devices. Okay, we are talking from the ambulance point of view, but then talking about any devices. Is it so problematic? Yes, it is problematic. And then what is the point of using that contradiction matrix? In that case, it is making you more confused. Here you will find that then we have actually looked at this table, and what we have said, design principle as selected. So here we have selected so many design principles. Let us see that, say for example, design principle number 1. And what is the frequency of that in the whole picture? So it is only used once. Look at the principle number 2, it is used for only one. Look at the principle number 3, it is used for 2 times. That means the number of that frequency has increased to 2 times. Like that, when you actually enter into this domain, you will find that the principle number 10 is used 3 times. That means now 10 principle is rather having a more impact in the design of the innovative part rather than any other principle. So better focus only on the 10. Don't focus on all the principles which are already been listed. So here, if you look at this particular table, what is 10? 10 say prior action, do it in an advance. So what is the prior action? We can go through it. There is a very nicely given approach how exactly is to be done. We are going to do the tutorial tomorrow based on this. But what is interesting here is to see that when you actually enter into this domain, the one which is used more frequently to be looked first and then start brainstorming. That is what they say about the trees technique. Let me tell you an interesting thing here about these trees, that contradiction matrix is important because it actually helps brainstorming. Remember, again I am repeating, brainstorming for a product which is not existing. But suppose the product is already existing and I want to improve it. But I want that it should be used, or rather it should be more popular from the customer point of view. Then there is another one called as the ideality. What is ideality? Ideality is a very simple thing, and they say that it has been defined by a simple ratio called design objective to that of a design constraint. Or rather, to make it more simple, it has been indicated as a useful function to the harmful function. Very simple to understand. Useful function to the harmful function. Now look at the useful function and harmful function, because when you actually look at this particular aspect, what is the useful function in a device and what is the harmful function in a device? You know, the useful function is very easy for us to define. We say that I want that a result should be reliable. That is a useful function. But then what is a harmful function? What is a harmful function in case of any device? It is the cost of the device. The cost of the device, if it is very high, that becomes a harmful function. If we say that the product is not environmentally friendly, then that is a so-called, what is called as a harmful function. So you want useful functions to be more, harmful functions to be less. So when you look at that particular so-called ratio, you will find that if useful function is, or there are no harmful functions, so 0, then what will happen? Then the product, that ratio will lead to infinity. So that's what they say. If your product is the best, then ideality will be infinity. And when your useful function is 0, that means ideality is 0. In that case, that particular product is worse product. So what you need to do, if at all the product is already available, then get its ideality. And it is the person who is designing that particular product, who is interested in innovating new things in the product, he is the ultimate person to take care of that. And what he will do, he will rather look at the product and see that what is its ideality at this moment. How to improve its ideality. That means suppose the ideality is 10, he will say that how can I make it 20, how can I make 30, or rather see that the harmful function is to be reduced or useful function is to be increased. So that is what exactly is the case. Very easy but very tough to handle. What is interesting here is to see that there are certain principles in ideality that we need to look at, and that's what they say, paths to improve that, which is very well documented, and we will definitely see it in our tutorial tomorrow, like how exactly the ideality is to be taken care. Here we said that they say that exclude the auxiliary function, exclude the element, identify self-service. These are all the things which have been already been documented. Okay, and let me tell you one thing, I think that will be quite interesting to look at. Say mobile phones. Now when you look at the mobile phones, then you will find that there are more auxiliary functions in the mobile phones. You are not using all the functions. Or maybe if at all it is to be used for the senior citizens, they may not be requiring so many auxiliary functions. So if you reduce that, that means self-help with essential function. So that's what they say, exclude the auxiliary function is one of the paths to improve the identity. So what will happen? As soon as you exclude the auxiliary function, the cost will be less. Cost is less means what? The ideality is increased, because that's a harmful function. So ultimately, what you are required to do is to see that this is one of the principles by which you can improve the ideality in case of an existing one. So now let us look at it from a very interesting point, that if a medical device is already existing and you want to improve that, then use ideality and see how best you can do that. And we are, as I already told you, that we are going to see it in the tutorial. But if a medical device is not at all existing, then use the contradiction matrix. or maybe the other techniques of the tools of the trees, and you'll find that you can definitely look at the innovative product. Okay. Now let me tell you, this is also an excluded element, you know, the laptop with mouse and all that. Okay, we will see tomorrow. So now what we have done at VNIT, like that's what I always used to say, case studies, or rather we call it the success stories. Have you anytime used the trees and developed the success stories in that? The answer to that is yes. Now let me tell you an interesting thing, that one of my PhD students who is supposed to come here for delivering this lecture, but because of his engagement there in the college he could not. But this Dr. Mahesh, he has actually completed his PhD based on this. I am going to show you tomorrow his thesis also. Design of innovative product using trees and development using layered manufacturing. Again, remember here, polymer printing. Okay, now he has developed it, and you will find out what he has done. He has developed a device for detecting a glaucoma. Glaucoma is a very problematic disease, especially in rural sector. All of a sudden their sight gets lost without any warning. And that happens because they were not even aware that it's a very simple thing, that the ocular pressure, they talk about the ocular pressure in our eyes. If at all it gets reduced, finally your retina gets collapsed, and finally you will find that you cannot see anything. And this is true there in villages. Very important point that I would like to tell you here, that Mahesh has studied, or rather Mahesh has done his PhD work based on the devices to be developed which is not existing for the glaucoma detection. Now how exactly they detect the glaucoma? If you go and visit the so-called ophthalmologist, then they use certain devices called Shiva's tonometer and all that, by which they can actually measure the pressure. And what they do, they actually touch the probe to your sclera by opening a mite. They put some anesthetical dose and they just put that in, and they say that okay, this is the pressure. Now this is a technique which is bit problematic. Nowadays there are good instruments that have come in the market, but they are really very costly. Again, I told you, like, cost is a major factor in our developing countries. Then we started thinking about why not to develop a device which will measure the ocular pressure by closing the lids, not by opening the lids and putting the anesthetic dose there, because that probe may disturb the sclera and ultimately the eyes. Many eyes got rather damaged because of that. So we thought that why not to develop a device, if at all it is a only pressure measurement, then why not to think of getting it by closing the eyelids, and then we can save the sclera. And this is how he has started. He has started now developing a device which is not existing. There is no device which can actually measure the ocular pressure by keeping the eyes closed. So he has worked on this trees methodology, and finally he is successful in getting this particular device. Okay, the complete details of it is available here. But what is important here, that the customer always in loop. Who is the customer in that case? It is the ophthalmologist, because he is going to use that. So we have taken the ophthalmologist into consideration right from the stage 1, from the very first baby step. And that ophthalmologist used to guide us. I'll tell you a very interesting thing here, that because of his involvement, we could succeed in defending in every so-called stages wherever the doctors are in the audience. Because that fellow is with us, who has actually guided us right from the very first stage. So whenever the queries is to come from the medical fraternity, he used to answer that. And finally we got successful in getting, this is actually the research paper. Okay, I can send you across anytime. But what is interesting is that we have patented that device. That's number 1. And number 2 is that because of this particular device which we have developed, the Mahesh has got a BARAC grant of 50 lakhs rupees to develop this particular instrument. Getting a grant from the government to start your own company itself is a big achievement. And that's what I already told you, the success story. The success story doesn't talk about the research article published, or success story doesn't talk about the patent granted. But the success story talks about the money that you get it from the government to start your own startup. What is the idea? How come that this is possible? This is possible only with the two very important points. The first one is that was his PhD topic. That means the whole research for the 4 years that he has carried out using the trees is supporting his so-called research. So the jury were not in a different mood to say that it is not a research. It is a research. That's number one. Because based on the PhD research, you have to publish the articles and everything. Number two, the doctor is in the loop right from the first stage. So when we have actually presented this in a BARAC team for getting the grant, there are around 25 juries from the different disciplines, and even the 4 or 5 from the doctor medical fraternity. So whenever the doctor used to raise a query, it was difficult for us to answer, but our doctor, who was in the loop right from the beginning, he used to answer that no, this is possible, because in practice we used to get this type of the query. So ultimately we got the 50 lakhs rupees, and Mahesh actually given that particular this particular grant to Neha to start these particular devices. No doubt that's a different story, like what happens after that and all that, because that's itself we are not going to discuss what happens to the startup. But what is the success story? Getting a 50 lakh grants. Now see the way I told you about. I told you that we talk about the research from the point of view of how many papers we have published. Sometimes we talk about the patent granted also. But that is not a success story. The success story is that somebody is paying you money, and that too from the government sector, to start your own company. That shows the complete confidence in your research, and we call such as a research deployment. So ultimately, what is important here is that whenever we enter into the innovative devices, medical devices, see that the technique like trees and ideally is going to improve us, and it is the research that goes for the last 4 years is going to help us. It's not that all of a sudden early morning, that's how the thing is. Just like the story of the Goodyear I told you. I don't know how many of you are aware the Kekule's dream. Are you aware of Kekule's dream? Kekule is the name of the scientist who was confused how to get a structure of a benzene where there are 6 carbon and 6 hydrogen. And he was worried how to get that, because every carbon will have a 4 hydrogen to balance it. But there are 6 carbon and 6 hydrogen. He was worried that how to draw a structure of that. One day he slept, and at night in his dream he has seen the serpents, and every serpent is keeping the tail of that per one into their mouth. So it's like a ring type of a circle. He got early morning and he said, yes, I got the structure. It is a benzene ring. So that's how the thing is. So if the same thing would have happened with us, at night we have seen serpent in our dream, we would have said, oh, tomorrow whether I'm going to survive or not, I don't know, something is happening. So this type of the research is okay that time, the way it has happened. Even Archimedes principles and everything, you are aware of that. He just come out of the bathtub and said that something is. It's a miracle for him. But when you have such type of the research base in your innovation, no one can deny that this is not possible. And they immediately approved it. Anyhow, it's a long story. I made it short, and we are going to look into that tomorrow. Okay? So what is important here is that this is a wonderful case study, and this is how you can see that Neha testing this particular device, informing to the so-called Anil Kakorkar sir that how they have developed it and all that, and they also appreciated. Why they have appreciated? Any reason? They have appreciated that device because Bayrak has given them 50 lakhs. They say that how come that this 50 lakhs has been given to this device? Let me check. Let me see that. And because it has been already proved in public domain that it is a research which is to be deployed. And therefore everybody starts taking interest, and this is how you will have to attract the funding from the angels and the venture capitalists looking at your TRL 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8, I told you it's very tough. If you get a grant from the government based on the research that you have carried out, immediately it will attract the attention of the angels and the venture capitalists. Because they say, oh, this has been already evaluated and the people are ready to give grant to them, then why not to give them more grant and see that that particular thing is into practice. Ultimately, that's what we want. We said right from the beginning that it is in the class 3 devices we will have to enter into this zone systematically, and then we will have to compete with the imported devices. Otherwise, simply copying the imported devices is not going to help us, because they already taken a lot of efforts and we cannot compete with them. So what I would like to tell you, that whenever the innovations in the devices has to be carried out, then this is what exactly we are supposed to look at. So what I would say, that I think it's a high time for us to say conclusion about that. The conclusion is that the important milestone is to identify the dedicated researcher leaders in science who will be taking interest in multidisciplinary approach. Remember, I think this is a wonderful pictures of Abdul Kalam sitting somewhere in Thumba, where the even the every time you sweet so high, not very good place, and we go on calling bad names to the place where we live. We said Nagpur is a dirty place, very bad, very bad, very bad. He was sitting in Thumba doing a lot of work. You can see that the satellite is being loaded on a bullock cart. The rocket nose has been carried over the cycles. That shows the dedication. Otherwise, we only talk about that there is no good communication, nothing. There's even think of an internet app not available for 2 hours, and we start calling bad names to everybody. Say this is what actually, and that is a multidisciplinary approach. That's number one. And second one, which we always say that's what I say, that we have to look at the technology, the duty for social benefit. What is the use of my technology? And that's very interesting in case of medical devices. What I said to you, that you will have to ask the medical practitioner that what is your problem? What exactly you are facing the problem about the diagnosis. And if you feel that he wants to develop a device, then better use the trees technique. See that you can develop a device which is not at all existing, or use the ideality principle and see that you improve the existing device. Okay, so this is very interesting, and we always say that we have to counter the egoism. We should not say that, okay, I'm the best. No, we are the best. Replace I with the we. Okay, and then the thing will move properly. Okay, so these are the 2 interesting conclusion points here. Thank you very much for your patience hearing. Right on the time we are finished, 3:30. But now we are open for question answers for half an hour, and then immediately we'll start our inauguration function. You may ask me, sir, that why the inauguration function at 4 o'clock, why not in the morning at 10 o'clock? Actually, inauguration function has to be in the morning. Okay? I'll tell you the reason. It is because our foreign faculty supposed to come yesterday at night around 2:30 a.m. And then I thought that because she has traveled a lot from Stockholm to Doha and Doha to Nagpur, she will be very tired and she will not be in a position to rather attend the inauguration and then again start developing. And I thought that it's better that 4 o'clock she will come. At least I'll ask her to come for the inauguration. And then next day she will start delivering a lecture. That's how we have developed our schedule also, which is already submitted. But yesterday she got some problem in Doha International Airport, the overbooked capacity of the flight, and therefore she was asked to stay at Doha. So she could not come yesterday, but she's coming today at 2:30. So, and tomorrow, and she has written to me that I got delayed here at Doha, but then I will definitely see that my lecture at 9 o'clock on the next day will be as usual, except at inauguration she will not be here. Yes. Anyhow, and in inauguration schedule also, I don't know whether I given to you. I have not kept her speech also. I thought that let her only sit here in the table on the dais, and so that she can see the participants and interact with us. And therefore, she was not given any chance to speak also. But anyhow, she could not come. There is no issue. But what I'll do now, quickly, if you have any questions, anything to ask, we'll have that. Then I'll go to the director office and then bring him here, and so that we can start with the inauguration. So, any question, anything you would like to ask? If you would like to interact. Any questions? Anything? If there are no questions, let me tell you an interesting thing here. That, we have decided to rather offer some gift to the people, those who are very, very vibrant in the class, asking question every now and then, troubling the speaker, making the whole system very vibrant. So, if you don't ask the question, then I have to think, like to whom I should give that prize, number one. Number two, that that if you keep on asking the questions, keep on asking your queries, it will be really very vibrant course. Otherwise, you know, we are conducting examination also. But what is interesting is that if the vibrance is there in the conduct of any course, then we remember it forever. And then maybe we get connected to each other very nicely. And something will come out, as I already mentioned to you here also, that innovation is a continuous process. And I told you at the end also, that we have to replace that I with the we. So this we will be together, and that is what we want to do. So please do answer the question, keep the whole atmosphere vibrant, so that it will be quite interesting for all of us to interact in future also. Okay. So yeah, any questions? Let me ask questions to them then. Anything you would like to ask?
Actually, I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
So, can we get 2 grants for the same topic?
2 grants for the same innovation. This
Yes.
See, as such, there is no rule like this. That as such, there is no rule that oh, this comes as if it is an ecosystem. Huh? Okay. So, as such, there is no rule that how much grant is to be given to a particular innovation or to the research by organization A or by organization B. Organization A is different, organization B is different. So, if you are applying for organization A and saying that this is my innovation, I need this much of money, and if they have granted you the same, then in that case, what you need to do, that you have to approach to the another institute B, saying that after applying A, I got this much of grant. I am supposed to execute it this way, but this is not going to this is not a sufficient one. I need more money to get it finally deployed, just like the TRL9 and everything we talked about. So when you present it in this manner, for the same research, it is possible. Why 2, even more than that?
So, even though if the timeline is completed for the first grant,
Then absolutely it's possible for the second. Because in that case, you have to rather advocate that you have exhausted the first grant, you have carried out this work, and still more work is required to be done, for which I am presenting my report, and I need more money. What is the harm in that? So if it is even it is in the same organization, you can do that. But you have given me, say, for example, 1 crore. I have exhausted it everything, but still I have not got the sufficient reason to deploy that. I need more money. They can.
I have received grant from RGSTC
Yeah.
last year, and and the timeline is it's around July 2026. It will be completed, but I'm guessing that my project will not be completed by then. So is it possible that I can again ask them?
Yes, you can. You can give them the complete reasoning that this is what you have executed. You have finished the work. Whatever has been already indicated in the earlier proposal. My grant is over now. I don't have any money, and I wish to know. I wish to get more money from you. You can definitely do that. But again, one point is very important here. I hope let me make it more clear to you. Always asking for the grant and getting your research done, or rather getting your research deployed, is not a healthy practice. Because what you do, you look at the grant, execute your work. Once you finish it, again you go for another grant, and it's like your dependency on a certain institute or on a grant, and you are not forced to deploy it in the practice. You are just carrying out the research. So that's what I always used to say. You are always in TRL1 to TRL5. That's all. It's like a pendulum. We only operate in TRL1 to TRL5, TRL1, TRL5. We don't go later from TRL5 onward, that is 6, 7, 8, 9, we don't go. For example, if you have finished your work and you feel that, okay, this much you have achieved, then go and talk to some angels or venture capitalists or some private agencies saying that this is the work I had done and I want to deploy it. This is what is the total amount required. It may go in crores, doesn't matter. But now you are informing them that my TRL5 is over. Now I want to go next to that. In this scenario, what are you going to do when you are again approaching to RGSTC? You are again operating in that pendulum only. You say, okay, I need some more money because this work is to be done, that work is to be done. So you are again, what they say, whenever you have developed any device or product, think of deploying it in the market directly. Even if it is failure, doesn't matter. What the people will say, oh, you have developed a pacemaker and that pacemaker is failing. All of a sudden the people will say, ये fail हो गया. क्यों fail हो गया? Why it has failed? Because your battery was not up to the mark. So I had to think over it. That everything was fine, but battery circuitry was not properly designed. So immediately I get the clue that I should do more work towards that. Otherwise, again I am going to look into the same pacemaker mechanism and I am going to say that यार ठहरो भाई देखेंगे लगाएंगे उसको use करेंगे. So you are unnecessarily waiting and you are not handling the problem which might come once it is in the customer's hand. So my advice is shift pendulum as early as possible or shift your work from TRL5 onwards. You may have to go on talking to n number of peoples for getting the grants, and they may rather reject you every now and then saying that this is useless and all that. You know that Shark Tank, you people must have already seen it. What they do, they just pitch it there on the fun and then all of a sudden 1 crore de diya, 2 crore de diya, like that. So now they say that we are now looking for the TRL5 onwards. And that's what most of the startups are failing only because of this purpose. They only look at this TRL1 to 5, TRL1 to 5. They don't enter into the market at all. Entering into the market required guts. Guts in what sense? Getting the funding from the private organization. RGSTC is a government organization. So again they will go to the n number of so-called steps and they will be more interested in your ECNUS rather than whether it is deployed or not. So all these things required guts. And once, say, if you approach to me saying, sir, I need a grant from you to get it in the market, I'll just go into the detail of your product and I'll say, okay, I can give you 1 crore, but then I will think twice because the money is going from my pocket. I'll see that whether he will be returning back me more than 1 crore or not. And therefore, I will evaluate your proposal n number of times. Because that money I need to come back with me because I'm going to give you that particular thing based on some equity. So So all these things matters a lot, especially when you deal with the angels and the so-called venture capitalist. I'll tell you, better talk to any venture capitalist and angels just for the sake of fun, and say that I have some device here and there and all that. You know, have you met any angels or venture capitalists in any time in your life? If you meet them, you will find that they are like a very common man. They don't even dress it properly. And I just asked, because I met many of them, I just asked them like, how comes that you are a venture capitalist? Because I thought that venture capitalist means he must be having crores of millions like a Trump and all that, very big person. He said, no, we take the loan from the bank to give you the money. See, the personal loan from the bank to give you the money. That's the way they operate. If they take the loan from the bank, personal loan from the bank to give the money, naturally he will think twice, thrice, 4 times that I had to repay that loan based on the whatever the profit you will earn once that particular device is in the market. So this is how they operate, and therefore they will not give you so easily the money. And that's what exactly we want to test our device. So my advice to you is that don't look at the RGSTC again. Go to the some venture capitalist and all that, and tell him that I want to enter into the TRL 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That will be interesting. So it's high time for me to proceed. We will be in touch. Okay, otherwise also. So we'll start our inauguration at 4 o'clock. Okay, so I'll just go and change the direction. See that the other people who will come for the inauguration. So it's better that if you can sit on the very first 2, 3 lines only, so that and the rest.